Imagine for a moment that your mind is a vast laboratory, an ethereal space where every thought, emotion and belief transforms into raw material. In this invisible laboratory, you are both the alchemist and the architect, the creator of the world you inhabit. But what if I told you that you possess a secret formula, a combination of universal principles and mental processes capable of transmuting the simplest idea into an extraordinary result? In the mental chemistry, Charles F. Haanel invites us to delve into this realm of infinite possibilities. With the wisdom of an explorer who has navigated the oceans of the human mind, Haanel reveals how the laws of thought and the chemistry of our beliefs not only explain our present but also shape our future. This is no ordinary text. It is a map to the boundless power that lies within you. As you listen to these pages come to life, prepare to be transported to a dimension where science and philosophy converge, where the tangible and the intangible merge in a magical dance. Here you will discover that the key to transforming your life does not lie outside of you, but in the deepest and most mysterious processes of your own mind. Welcome to a mental chemistry, where the spark of your thoughts ignites the fire that forges your destiny. Tune your senses and prepare to embark on a journey that will forever change the way you understand the creative power you carry within. Chemistry is the science that deals with intraatomic changes, or those occurring under diverse influences. Mental chemistry is defined as the intellect, feelings and will, everything obtained and verified through observation. Mental chemistry, therefore, is the science that deals with the transformations experienced through the operations of the mind. Correct thinking, like chemical transformations, results from an orderly combination of elements which produce specific outcomes. For example, the combination of Arabic numerals 1, 2, 3, etc. allows for the construction of infinite numerical possibilities. Similarly, letters of the alphabet, when properly grouped, create meaningful words, and this grouping results in a new individuality, possessing unique characteristics not found in any single component alone. A molecule of sodium combined with chlorine forms salt. This specific combination is the only one capable of producing salt, despite the individual elements being vastly different from the compound they create. What is true for inorganic matter also applies to the organic realm, where certain conscious processes invariably produce consistent results. For thought to exist, it must function independently of the organs it influences. For instance, light must exist independently of the eye, just as sound must exist independently of the ear. Thought arises from the universal mind, and because this universal mind is common to all living beings, it governs action and reaction universally. However, the principle of causality is not an objective faculty, but a process necessary for power to manifest. The infinite variety of potential results demonstrates the universality of this principle. Humanity's evolution has shifted from brute survival in dark caves, governed by ignorance and hatred, to a more enlightened existence. Today, humans wield pens instead of clubs, recognizing others as allies rather than enemies. This transformation from material struggle to mental mastery marks a significant milestone. Through thought, humans construct organic structures and influence their environment. For example, organisms that need light or nourishment evolve mechanisms to meet those needs. Certain species of deer feed where their preferred food is available, while amphibians may develop wings if their survival demands it. The process of evolution itself demonstrates the application of mental chemistry. Experiments like those conducted by Dr. Jack and Professor Elmer Gates of the Smithsonian Institute highlight the influence of thought on physical matter. Guinea pigs, subjected to different environmental conditions, exhibited brain growth and changes in their physiological states, proving that mental states directly affect physical outcomes. The mind's power to move blood, as shown in experiments where subjects imagined running or solving problems, demonstrates its connection to physical action. This interplay of conscious and subconscious thought influences all aspects of life. When learning to play the piano, for example, deliberate conscious effort eventually becomes subconscious, allowing for effortless execution. The subconscious mind faithfully executes the directives of conscious thought, making the quality of conscious thinking critical. The harmonious collaboration between the two governs activities like circulation, digestion, and other automatic processes. By consciously altering thoughts, one can influence the subconscious, leading to profound changes in one's reality. The universal substance is ever active, shaped by mental demand. Thought forms the mold from which our future emerges. Without mind, nothing can exist, for all things derive from the basic substance shaped by thought. Creation is a continual process driven by the ability to think. Many great philosophers, scientists, and artists have harnessed this understanding to bridge the visible and invisible, the personal and universal. Through their discoveries, they have amazed the world and revealed the supreme law of cause and effect. This law governs all existence, ensuring balance and unity throughout the cosmos. Whether considering the movement of celestial bodies or the development of human thought, all phenomena follow this immutable principle. The idea of luck or chance is merely a misunderstanding of this universal law. The ether, as a medium for vibrations like wireless communication, demonstrates the interconnectedness of all things. Vibrations resulting from thought influence both the visible and invisible realms. Higher planes of thought attract similar thoughts, creating a network of influences. For instance, those focused on success attract thoughts and circumstances aligned with success, while ignoring those unrelated to their goals. This alignment of thoughts and vibrations is the basis for achieving harmony and fulfilling one's desires. Through practice, one can refine their ability to focus and manifest desired outcomes. Thoughts do not vanish, but remain as potential realities, ready to be expressed. Thus, every individual, from financiers to artists, draws upon this universal reservoir to create their reality. Even if initial attempts at manifestation fail, persistence and refinement of thought lead to success. The mind operates on principles of cause and effect, with the conscious mind influencing the subconscious to produce tangible results. Thought, as an activity of the spiritual realm, transcends the physical senses and reveals the power of mental chemistry. The result was the success of our experiment, a testament to our ability to be receptive to the scientific truths that permeate the substance in which we live and move, a substance that saturates everything and is the source of all. This substance, often referred to as the ether, represents something measurable. However, not all that is immeasurable is dismissed by scientists. For instance, an electron cannot be directly measured, yet its existence is undeniable. Current understanding suggests that extraordinary conditions would be required to measure something as minute as an atom or electron, let alone their intricate movements. Atoms, akin to solar systems, possess a positive central sun surrounded by negative planets of energy. The number and arrangement of electrons determine the nature of the so-called element. For example, the hydrogen atom with one negative electron serves as the standard of atomic weight. The relationship between the size of an electron and the orbit it describes around its nucleus illustrates the astonishing precision of atomic structures. The refinement of matter has revealed its near-infinite potential for reorganization. Electrons combine to form atoms, atoms form molecules, and molecules gain unique identities, as exemplified by water H2O, a compound of hydrogen and oxygen. The natural world uses these units of matter, cells, and organisms to construct increasingly complex entities. For instance, plants draw minerals, air, and water to form their tissues, feeding off the mineral world. Eventually, animal life emerges with its added dimensions of individual consciousness and sensation. Animal life has evolved remarkably, developing from simple unicellular organisms to complex beings made up of billions of cells. These cells form communities, working in harmony to sustain the body as a unified conscious entity capable of movement, reproduction, and selective action. Like individual cells, groups of cells coordinate through centralized systems, culminating in the nervous system of higher organisms. In humans, approximately 26 trillion cells are organized into systems, each performing essential functions to maintain life and enable physical expression. The cooperation and vitality of these cellular communities ensure health and balance, while discord results in disease and dysfunction. The brain and nervous system act as the coordinating hub, enabling memory, decision-making, and harmonious interaction between all body systems. The complexity of this organization mirrors the structure of human societies, where individuals contribute to various roles in agriculture, industry, commerce, and governance. Just as the health of a nation depends on the harmonious functioning of its citizens, the vitality of the body relies on the synchronized efforts of its cells. Disruptions within cellular systems can lead to imbalances that jeopardize the entire organism, underscoring the critical importance of unity and cooperation. Intelligence governs this harmony, whether at the cellular or societal level, allowing humanity to create, innovate, and direct forces in nature. Just as cells act independently, yet cohesively within the body, humans exercise their free will while contributing to the collective progress of their environment. Bergson, in his concept of creative evolution, seems to perceive a creative energy behind the processes of life, much as one might imagine an unseen force when observing a distant skyscraper being constructed. Upon closer examination, seeing the builders at work, one might form a more grounded idea of how that skyscraper came to exist. This creative energy is mirrored in the remarkable complexity of a single cell. Even the unicellular amoeba, devoid of complex organs, carries within it the materials and mechanisms necessary to sustain and protect itself, sometimes even building structures like shells for armor. Other cells demonstrate extraordinary abilities, such as synthesizing starch from water with the help of sunlight. A cell is, in essence, a highly organized individual. From the perspective of physics and biology, it is indistinguishable from matter and energy at work. But this organization is as striking as the movement of an automobile, guided not merely by gravitational force, but by intelligent design. The structures of life, like the materials of the earth, air, and water, form entities as intricate as railways and skyscrapers, built by humans. The intelligence behind these constructions highlights a key parallel. If human ingenuity shapes civilization, why not consider the evolution of cells as similarly guided? Cells exhibit a social structure evolving in a manner analogous to human societies. For instance, white blood cells act as defenders, tirelessly repairing wounds or combating disease, sacrificing themselves in large numbers to preserve the greater body. Science acknowledges the extraordinary coordination within cellular republics. Each cell acts as an autonomous citizen, contributing selflessly to the common welfare. This collective organization achieves results at the cost of individual sacrifice, an impartial distribution of duties driven by the common good. Our bodies, then, are not isolated entities, but colonies of microscopic units of life. Each cell is a self-contained unit, while together they form a greater whole, much like a ship comprised of individual components. When the ship is wrecked, its parts may scatter, but the life of the ship ceases only because the vital forces, the crew, have abandoned it. Similarly, when life leaves the human body, the cells return to natural laws, even as they once operated as unified vital entities. Modern science often assumes too readily that only what is visible defines existence, yet much of life operates beyond the limits of observation, governed by forces we cannot see. Even in chemical solutions, life processes form ordered structures, suggesting the presence of vital forces guiding these phenomena. This unseen vitality animates animals and humans alike, shaping and maintaining life. Thought governs the world, underpinning every industry, invention, and progress. Nations and individuals differ based on the quality of their thinking, for thought is the product of intelligence. It shapes ideas, industries, and lives. Thought, unlike material goods, is not bound by physical limitations. It continues in waves, influencing matter and consciousness, driving forward the evolution of life and the refinement of existence. Even the body's chemistry reflects the profound interplay of thought, energy, and matter. Internal secretions from endocrine glands profoundly affect physical development, emotional states, and even consciousness itself. Imbalances in these secretions can disrupt the body's harmony, leading to diseases like gigantism or dwarfism. Research into endocrine functions has illuminated once mysterious aspects of human physiology, revealing how these small yet powerful organs regulate and sustain life. The thyroid gland, for example, plays a critical role in maintaining metabolic balance. Its removal results in profound physical and mental degeneration, underscoring the interconnectedness of the body's systems. Each gland, organ, and cell depends on the delicate chemistry of the body to function effectively, much like a finely tuned engine reliant on its oil supply. Without this equilibrium, the human form degrades, becoming a mere caricature of its potential vitality and humanity. Several substances are known and referred to as hormones. The term derives from the Greek verb meaning to stimulate, a name given by Starling and Bayliss, two prominent British endocrinologists. Conditions such as cretinism, idiocy, and dwarfism have been linked to issues with the internal secretion of the thyroid glands, as observed in sheep. Cretinism is caused by the lack or absence of thyroid secretion. To appreciate the fascination of these studies, let us consider the fundamental role of endocrine glands in transforming organisms. Take, for example, the Mexican axolotl, a purely aquatic newt that can quickly transform into an ambystoma, a terrestrial salamander, when influenced by certain glandular factors. Endocrine glands secrete substances that enter the bloodstream and affect the structure and functions of the body. The pituitary gland, located in the center of the head just below a depression in the cranial bone plate, plays a key role in carbohydrate mobilization, the stimulation of other glands, and the maintenance of body growth and development. Its insufficient or excessive activity during growth influences body structure and mental function. The thyroid gland, situated in the neck in a semicircular shape, plays a vital role in mobilizing nutrients, stimulating other glands, resisting infections, and aiding in digestion. It contributes significantly to physical development and general health. Balanced thyroid secretion ensures well-coordinated bodily functions. The adrenal glands, located near the back, are often referred to as emergency glands. One of their functions involves the proper mobilization and distribution of bodily energy. More importantly, they influence the sympathetic nervous system, affecting organs like the intestines and other pathways. These glands respond to emotional stimuli such as fear, anger, and jealousy, triggering immediate bodily reactions that prepare the entire system for response. This has been compared to a telephone system, linking the conscious mind with all parts of the body, enabling communication from the brain. Similarly, the subconscious mind has its center in the solar plexus, which governs abdominal organs as well as the brain. This subconscious system maintains bodily balance and interacts with the conscious brain-spinal system. Emotions like fear, anger, and hatred can disrupt bodily functions, altering nutrition and health. Such emotions disrupt the harmonious functioning of the sympathetic nervous system, replacing positive, constructive forces with negative, destructive ones. Mental chemistry plays a significant role in shaping both emotional and physical health. Constructive emotions generate positive energy, while negative ones lead to discord. The universal law of life operates perpetually and harmoniously, embodying perfect unity, justice, and growth. Its actions are immutable, working silently yet powerfully to maintain balance and resolve life's challenges. This law of attraction governs all aspects of life, from the cohesion in a rock to the beauty in a sapphire. It aligns with individual desires and intentions, facilitating growth unique to each being. Like grafting an apple bud onto an orange tree, the universal sap nourishes both, resulting in fruit that reflects the original source. Similarly, human desires act as the fruit of the universal force. The maturity of these desires reflects their healthiness or otherwise. This realization prompts us to align our thoughts and desires with a greater truth, enhancing our consciousness and personal growth. Life, as seen through this lens, is a blend of self-discovery and external influences, culminating in the evolution of a unique, individualized self. Through introspection and conscious action, we awaken to deeper truths and universal laws, ultimately achieving mastery over ourselves. In this journey, life passes through three phases: unconscious growth, conscious development, and self-directed mastery. By understanding and applying these universal laws, we can evolve from mere survival to a state of enlightened existence, marked by balance and harmony. And thirdly, our conscious state. We all know that to grow and evolve, we must first send forth sprouts, just as a plant does. A plant first sends out thoughts or ideas before it can grow and evolve from the stage of intellectual and conscious growth. Likewise, we must send out sprouts before we can progress from conscious growth to a state of conscious mastery. Without this, we would remain mere creatures bound by law. Like the plant, we must individualize and reach a state where we radiate the beauty of a perfected life, standing as a unit of power and a master of our growth. Each of us possesses a force, a law set into motion by ourselves, to master the laws and bring desired results into our lives. Life is a strict adherence to these laws, whether we are aware of them or not. Life is found to consist of chemical actions occurring in our blood when we consume food, in our digestive organs, in how we use energy, and in the changes that take place both in the mind and the body. Change often causes disintegration, just as destructive thought sets a chain reaction in motion, irritating organs and negatively impacting health. When we worry, we stir a dark pool of negative chemical activity in the mind and body. Conversely, when we harbor constructive thoughts, we promote healthy chemical activity, benefiting both mind and body. Healthy thoughts shield us from the many ailments caused by destructive emotions. Life, in many ways, is a chemical reaction, and we are the chemists. Our thoughts are the seeds and our actions the fruits. What we experience today is the result of past thoughts and actions. Similarly, we create our future character and destiny through the thoughts we entertain. This aligns with the universal law of affinity, like attracts like. By focusing our thoughts and actions with determination, we create pathways of least resistance, enabling growth and success. The mastery of this law unfolds in 3 stages. In the first, we are bound by the law, unconscious of its influence. In the second, we become conscious users of its power. In the third, we become masters of the law, achieving freedom and deliberate control over our lives. Growth in the first and second stages keeps us bound to tradition and survival. Awakening to the third stage liberates us, allowing us to exercise mastery over ourselves and our environment. This is not a matter of chance, creed, wealth, or social status, but the result of understanding and applying the laws of nature wisely. Recent discoveries have unveiled vast potentials, immense forces, and possibilities that challenge previously rigid beliefs and theories. As outdated traditions, militarism, and materialism crumble, a new vision of progress emerges, a recognition of the mind's power to govern life. The world is on the brink of a new consciousness, one that recognizes the boundless resources within each individual. The past century achieved remarkable material advancements, but the new century promises a deeper understanding of the soul and its connection to the universe. To create harmonious environments and actions, we must first cultivate harmonious thoughts. Every thought originates from the creative center of the mind, guided by the unchanging laws of the universe. These laws are never suspended or overturned. They simply interact in higher and more intricate ways. Understanding and mastering these principles allows us to harness infinite possibilities, manifesting beauty, harmony, and success. By refining our thoughts, focusing our desires, and acting with intention, we align ourselves with the natural forces of growth and creativity. Great leaders and thinkers radiate strong, constructive currents that influence others, inspiring collective growth and action. Such mastery lies within every individual who seeks it, as the universal laws are accessible to all who strive for understanding and harmony. Ultimately, the world is alive with vibrations of energy, whether visible or unseen. Just as sound exists through the vibration of air and light through waves in the ether, life is a constant interplay of forces. By tuning our minds to these vibrations, we can perceive and create in ways that resonate with the highest potential of the universe. We know that these colors are only experienced by us as a result of vibrations. When they drop below 400 trillion vibrations per second, we experience the sensation of heat. Thus, we understand that these phenomena exist for us in our consciousness. Even time is nothing more than the experience of succession and not a separate reality. Ultimately, thought connects us with the present and controls all existence. Every atom must inevitably be received somewhere. It can only go where it is attracted, and therefore we can give only to those who are able to receive, just as we receive in proportion to our own harmony. The laws that govern this process are immutable, and the great eternal forces act in solemn precision. When we align ourselves with these laws, we express a life of harmony. Obstacles arise when we refuse to accept what is necessary for our growth, requiring us to welcome the new, the good, and the better. Each of us is a complete entity of thought. To the extent that we give, we cannot help but receive. The law of attraction operates in our favor when we control our thoughts and perceive the purpose behind what we attract. We receive only what we need for our growth, and our level of harmony or happiness is determined by our response to these needs. As our growth progresses, our vision expands, and with it, our ability to discern higher truths increases. Nothing comes to us except what is necessary for our development. Challenges will continue to appear until we absorb their lessons and move forward. Growth demands that we sow and reap according to the immutable requirements of effort. Our circumstances perfectly align with our understanding and conscious cooperation. Our minds are often constrained by racial suggestions, accepted without question, fostering fear, incapacity, and inferiority. These limitations hinder progress, even though the potential for liberation through appreciation and healthy thought is ever present. Women, perhaps more than men, have felt this oppression, as their sensitivities are often finer and more attuned to external influences. However, great examples of women's achievements, such as those of Clara Barton of the Red Cross, or other notable figures in art and philanthropy, show the awakening of independent thought. Modern science has demonstrated the intensities of motion and vibration, uncovering truths previously inconceivable. Standing in this newfound light, humanity now glimpses its potential for greatness. Within this life lies the germ of infinite possibilities. The realization of human potential is limited only by a lack of understanding and effort. Some achieve success with ease, while others struggle or fail entirely. The difference is not physical but mental. The mind is the force that distinguishes achievement. It is through mental mastery that humans surpass limitations. Yet, such mastery requires conscious effort, discipline, and concentration. The laws governing the mental world are as precise as those in the physical world. Objective reality mirrors our thoughts and words. The reason we fail to manifest desired outcomes lies in our incomplete understanding of these laws, which are as definite as those of mathematics. When we realize that happiness, conditions, and environments are results of thought, we will understand the importance of cultivating a harmonious mental state. Those who understand the laws of thought possess the greatest advantage. They align themselves with higher-order principles, allowing them to access a world of superior power. This alignment propels them forward, overcoming obstacles, transforming adversaries into allies, and mastering destiny. The law of mental supply dictates that we attract exactly what we need, consciously or unconsciously, to shape our environment. Dissatisfaction arises when our attitudes and thoughts conflict with this law. There is nothing strange or supernatural about this process. Just as the seeds we plant determine the fruit we harvest, so do our thoughts and desires create our conditions. Understanding the laws of vibration allows us to direct our mental energy constructively. Acting otherwise is like a child handling chemicals without understanding their properties or potential. The mind is the ultimate cause of all conditions, whether positive or negative. When we harbor discordant or destructive thoughts, we create similar conditions in our lives. This law operates constantly and unrelentingly. What we sow, we reap. Our thoughts and actions encompass all our achievements, including the genius of the musician who brings harmony from sound. The musician's genius depends on their brain, just as their music depends on sound waves to reach the physical world. The vibrations of thought and the harmony or discord they produce shape the conditions of life. Like a well-tuned violin, the human spirit seeks harmony as its highest expression. The spirit inspires the brain suitable for its expression. The more unpleasant the result for the ear, the greater the disparity when humans possess a highly developed brain but lack harmony in their thoughts. For instance, consider someone as powerful as Nietzsche, whose genius was affected by a broken mind. The spirit expresses itself through the brain, and its potential depends on this connection. Living with abstract concepts has become natural for us, yet many things hold such profound meaning that we hardly grasp their full essence. The spirit is at the core of everything, working through the brain to manifest itself in the material world. When one reflects seriously for some time on the vast power of thought, there is no more inspiring or fascinating idea. Think of the enormous machinery in motion, the shining cars, and the immense energy harnessed, not just by physical means, but through the spirit of man, which harnessed Niagara Falls and sent its power to distant cities. That same spirit, invisible and intangible, has no color, taste, or smell, nor can it be seen or occupy space. Yet it is everything. The world exists only as a manifestation of the spirit. The optic nerve captures an image, and sends it to the brain. It was this spirit that acted in Columbus's mind and through him transformed the world. This same force has gradually elevated humanity from primitive states to comparative civilization, and it will do so through infinitely superior brains working in harmony on this planet. The spirit lifts you when you face failure and misfortune. Without it, there would be nothing but lifeless stones and mannequins. The material world, as we know it, is the creation of the spirit. Every masterpiece existed first in the spirit of the artist before being realized in the material world. A thought must visualize itself and see itself reflected in physical reality to exist fully. A man or woman has full existence only in the flesh, embodying the love or ideals they inspire. Their potential is locked within them until the spirit, acting through thought, brings their work into being. All work begins with thought. Realizing this, we understand that thought is the source of all creation. Our duty is to give this spirit the best possible expression, despite the imperfect bodies it inhabits. Recognizing this inspiration, humanity has gradually evolved, becoming less animalistic and more aligned with the spirit. We know that this improvement stems from affection and devotion, as seen in the gradual physical and intellectual refinement of humankind over thousands of years. The jaws have narrowed, the foreheads have expanded, and the brain has developed to give greater expression to thought. The spirit and thought are identical in that thought is the music played by the spirit. Just as music depends on the tuning of an instrument, so does harmony depend on the proper functioning of the brain. An untuned brain produces dissonance, incapable of expressing higher thoughts, creating discord instead of spiritual harmony. Our planet is but a small corner of the cosmos, and each of us is an atom in this cosmic order. The spirit often expresses itself through the brains of others, guiding their actions. When you see an engineer or architect accomplish something remarkable, remember that it is the spirit working through them. Sometimes it is a small, unassuming person doing great work. It might even be a mother or father whose devotion transforms a child's life. The mind is the master of circumstances, shaping reality as surely as physical laws govern the material world. Nature's abundance proves that there is enough for everyone. Yet, understanding the mental principles that connect us to what we desire is necessary. The most valuable outcomes require deliberate cultivation. Control over circumstances is a natural fruit of mental mastery. The possession of material wealth only matters insofar as it impacts the spirit. The discovery of natural laws has replaced superstition with intelligence, allowing humanity to harness universal principles like gravity and magnetism. Similarly, mental, moral, and vital powers have emerged, shaping a world that would have been unimaginable even 50 years ago. The systematic organization of mental forces leads to unimaginable advancements. Understanding the laws of thought reveals that wealth and success originate from inner capacity. Those who love their work will continually receive more as they give more. This activates the law of attraction. All power and success come from within. Understanding this unleashes a state of mind that produces profound changes in life. Opportunities arise, circumstances adjust, and the ultimate wisdom is found. Limitations and adversity are results of a lack of inner power. Developing this power transforms fear into courage, despair into joy, and weakness into strength. This may seem too good to be true, but it reflects natural laws, as reliable as the leverage of physics. Nature's most powerful forces, whether in the mineral, vegetable, or atmospheric realms, are invisible yet transformative. Similarly, the most potent human force is spiritual, manifesting through thought. Thought is the only true product of the spirit, and it is through thought that the spirit shapes reality. The sum of reasoning is a spiritual process. Ideas are spiritual reflectors, and logic is the spiritual machinery. Every thought activates the brain, nerves, or muscles, producing a change. It only takes a certain number of these changes to create a complete reorganization, transforming failure into success. Thoughts of failure, despair, and lack are replaced by thoughts of hope, abundance, and light. The old truly passes away, and everything becomes new, this time born of the spirit. Life becomes joyful, confident, hopeful, and energetic. Even the blind recognize possibilities previously unseen. Those imbued with these thoughts radiate them to others, inspiring progress and success. This simple exercise of thought transforms one's environment, circumstances, and conditions. Over time, the possibilities reveal themselves as both wonderful and bewildering. A century ago, a man armed with modern weaponry could have annihilated an entire army. The same principle applies today. Anyone equipped with modern understanding holds an inconceivable advantage over their predecessors. Regarding the law of attraction, we should not attempt to impose it on others. Each individual has the right to choose and act according to the laws governing this force. A little reflection reveals that nature's laws operate silently, unlike the destructive processes of earthquakes or storms. Success is achieved not by taking from others, but by tapping into the inexhaustible abundance of nature. If lack exists, it is only due to blocked distribution channels. Recognizing the laws of abundance allows for the creation of all things. Just as we didn't benefit from natural laws until they were recognized, so too the law of abundance becomes useful when illuminated by understanding. Those who harmonize with these laws partake in the boundless abundance of the universe. This requires the development of certain mental qualities: loyalty, tact, sagacity, individuality, and consistency in thought. Each thought reflects a corresponding objective condition, and the ability to think is the foundation of all creation. Thought manifests possibilities and opportunities, differentiating universal principles and applying them to individual circumstances gives rise to talent and strength, which create the conditions for success. The realization that success and failure originate within the mind creates a harmonious, receptive state that aligns with the law of attraction. This universal law can be applied by anyone with sufficient knowledge and focus. The development of qualities like courage, initiative, and tact enables both leadership and obedience. Great leaders or thinkers, who may appear unremarkable, often conceal immense latent willpower, revealed only when circumstances demand it. True success is not rash or confrontational, but stems from careful planning, development, and the ability to capitalize on opportunities. Constructive qualities, rather than selfishness or greed, are essential for success. Initiative, the ability to discover and improve, is a universal force that all individuals possess to some degree. This force transforms energy, much like turning ice into steam to drive an engine. Imagination fuels the transformation of thought into power, while sagacity, perceiving and cooperating with natural laws, ensures success. Success also requires loyalty, tact, and the ability to understand others. A fine sensitivity enables one to anticipate outcomes and adjust accordingly. Loyalty builds strength and character, forging bonds that endure. Those who possess it would sacrifice anything before betraying a friend. It is a cosmic force that attracts desirable conditions, shielding one from lack. Strong individuals act with purpose, unaffected by applause or external validation. Individuality takes pride in its independence, disdaining servility. This power enables one to chart their own path, adjusting their life's mechanisms to align with universal principles. Visualization of perfection and faith in one's vision are essential for well-being and success. Failure results from ignorance of these principles, leading to discord and loss. Success requires harmonizing with truth, and those who deviate from it inevitably falter. Only by mastering these principles can one achieve true success, unlocking the magic that transforms potential into reality. Though most thoughts operate subconsciously, the conscious mind directs them toward meaningful outcomes. Those who achieve lasting success tap into the vast domain of mental wealth, shaping the invisible into the visible. Understanding the law that governs the mental world allows one to control conditions, circumstances, and even destiny, provided they consciously apply this knowledge. This law is omnipresent and responds universally to all who understand it. The fruit of this knowledge, the truth that sets men free, not only liberates them from sorrow, worry, and care, but also shows no favoritism. It does not matter who you are. Understanding that mental power can be cultivated and developed, and that it controls all things, is the greatest fact in the world. It is the remedy for difficulties and the fulfillment of every desire, granted by the Creator for humanity's emancipation. Thoughts are things. They are endowed with power to produce good or bad results, filling the world with their effects. These thoughts travel to the farthest corners of the earth, leaving their mark wherever they go. Our future is built by our thoughts. Whether or not we realize it, this is how the universe was forged. Therefore, destiny waits, for love brings harmony. The nervous system is matter. Its energy is the universal spirit, the link between matter and the cosmic spirit. It is the doorway to infinite power. Both voluntary and involuntary systems are controlled by nervous energy, so intricately interwoven that their impulses can be sent anywhere. Every nervous impulse is like a telegraphic system. The nerve fibers resemble wires, and the batteries generate nervous energy which the fibers transmit. Like electricity, light, or sound, the mind functions with its interpreter, the brain. The mind can only work effectively when its structure is in proper order. The organ of the sympathetic nervous system is the solar plexus, which manages involuntary or subconscious functions. Through the brain, we become conscious of thoughts, which originate from awareness. Without consciousness, this mental condition cannot exist, as an idiot lacks it. Knowledge is gained through awareness, and awareness grows with study and reflection. Possession is based on awareness. What we own outwardly reflects what we possess inwardly. The mind allows us to manifest thoughts, mental images, and creativity, enabling us to use thought as a tool to shape life. Our experiences depend on habitual thought. What we are is the result of what we think. To become what we desire, we must control and direct our thoughts. Thought is power, and there are only two elements: awareness of this creative power and its application. Through it, we act on forces and forms in the universal mind. The universal mind underpins everything according to fixed laws. It is the creative power that brings existence into being and sustains it. This universal mind is all consciousness and fundamentally the same at every point in its manifestation. Understanding this brings harmony to life and resolves all problems. The subconscious or subjective mind connects us to the inner world, but ultimately, there is no distinction. Mind is one in all its phases. The subconscious links us directly to all power. It is like a field of seeds filled with life, shaped by observation, memory, and consciousness. These seeds grow into external expressions of power. Thoughts translate into physical reality, much like how we harness electricity, channel water, and transform steam into energy for great ships. Though bound to the earth, humanity has conquered time and space through its understanding of universal principles. When connected to the universal source, we become channels for its energy, using it to address the challenges of life. The capacity to utilize this power depends on our understanding and alignment with the universal mind. The same power operates in both the infinitely small and the infinitely large, differing only in expression. A block of clay and a human possess the same energy, but the latter has learned to unleash and direct it. To manifest, one must develop awareness, whether through silence or repetition. Awareness guides thought, which then manifests into life and environment. Since everything external is a reflection of internal thought, its importance cannot be overstated. Character, marked by deeply ingrained tendencies, shapes thought and action. Purpose, the inner motive, drives outward ability, enabling one to achieve objectives. The interaction between character and attitude determines life experiences. Attitude, shaped by character, acts and reacts upon it, forming a continuous cycle governed by immutable laws. All visible and tangible forms are governed by the same universal force. Matter, life, and motion are expressions of this force. The principle of success lies in recognizing the connection between the subjective and objective worlds. The subjective world is the source of all power. The objective world reflects its vibrations, be it light, sound, or thought. Vibrations are essential to human experience. Some vibrations pass unnoticed due to our inability to receive them. Like a phonograph, reception requires proper conditions, otherwise distortions occur. The same applies to the inner world. It transmits and receives through consciousness, linking the material and universal realms. Consciousness, in its simplest form, gives us awareness of existence and objects. Cosmic consciousness transcends self-awareness, uniting time and space which cease to exist within it. This immutable law of consciousness governs all things. Thus, the development of power in the subjective and cosmic consciousness is the result of universal creation. It allows this universal power to function in the desired direction. The ego captures and uses it when part of consciousness perceives truth intuitively, bypassing the usual process. Through intuition, the mind instantly perceives truth, and the ego recognizes it, transforming it into wisdom, experience, and success, which leads to fulfillment in the external world. Intuition presents truth as facts of consciousness. The hammer of action forges thought. Thought is the power that rises above disaster and tramples it underfoot. Let nothing disturb your peace. Speak positively to everyone you meet. Make all your friends feel valued. Look for the good in everything and turn your optimism into reality. Think only of the best, work for the best, and expect only the best. Be as enthusiastic about the success of others as you are about your own. Forget past mistakes and press on to greater achievements. Keep a smile ready for every living being. Be so focused on improving yourself that you have no time to criticize others. Be too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to let trouble affect you. Think highly of yourself and strive for greatness not through loud words, but through meaningful actions. Live faithfully to the best within you. Christian D. Larson reflects this in Mexico, as all the Argos that once set sail with the treasure fleets of historic Spain pale in comparison to the wealth created every 8 minutes in the modern world. Opportunity follows perception. Action follows knowledge and progress follows environment. Always, the limitless possibilities of character and achievement await. This is true even for the 2% of the population responsible for the most significant creative advances. In other words, all our cars, libraries, and modern conveniences stem from the genius of this 2%. Who are these individuals? They are men and women of ability and energy. Studies show that 25% of them once earned less than $1,500 per year, and only 5% were children of bankers. Thus, the best life has to offer is accessible to all, not just the elite. The idea of randomness or chance determining success is refuted by the universe itself, governed by laws as orderly as the orbits of the stars and planets. Every material thing and every energy movement is governed by law. This law is generous, filling the universe with beauty. Financial affairs like health and growth are subject to this law, which anyone can follow. Those who consciously align with this law join the ranks of the 2%. Indeed, the industrial age shows that this 2% is poised to grow exponentially as its principles are increasingly understood. Every human experience has a cause. If we understand this cause and it lies within our control, then the resulting experience will also be within our control. Man will no longer be the victim of fate, but instead the captain of his destiny. All things are ultimately resolvable into unity. Contrasts such as light and darkness, knowledge and ignorance, or good and evil are merely relative terms. In the mental world, ignorance is simply a lack of knowledge, while moral terms like good and evil describe relative impacts on ourselves and others. Constructive thought benefits everyone and is called good. Destructive thought harms others and is labeled bad. These labels denote the results of thought in the industrial world. Capital and labor, rather than being separate forces, are integral parts of industry, encompassing anyone who depends on it for livelihood. We hear much about waste versus efficiency, but the dawn of a new era is upon us. This new thinking reveals that every condition results from a cause. The Renaissance, Reformation, and Industrial Revolution were all driven by new ideas. Similarly, today's movements, trusts, corporate economies, and cooperative systems eliminate competition to show that it is not necessary for progress. This change is growing rapidly and is poised to explode into an industrial renaissance. A force is awakening humanity like never before, fostering enthusiasm, energy, and creativity while breaking barriers. The future vision is already here. It is driven by the spiritual nature of the individual, which is instinctive and innate, incapable of eradication. The changes occurring in the industrial world reflect the human spirit. Modern individuals often no longer work with their hands, but instead channel their creativity destructively when opportunities for achievement are limited. Thought leads to action, and by changing thought, we can replace chaotic mental conditions with healthy ones. The power of thought controls all other powers. While currently harnessed by a few, it is about to become universally accessible. Those with imagination and vision will guide this power into constructive channels, encouraging an industrial renaissance like the world has never seen. The Dearborn Independent describes this era as standing on the threshold between two periods, the irresponsible infancy of humanity and its maturity. For too long, humanity has wasted its resources. Now there is an awakening, where people will fear wasting resources more than consuming too much. This transition will lead to an abundance of energy, light, heat, and power, so complete that the sin will be in not using enough. Resources will no longer be exploited recklessly, but will be harnessed wisely. Imagine a time when air, water, and natural forces provide limitless power for all. This future depends on channeling spiritual and intellectual activity into constructive thought. Such thought sets into motion a chain of events, attracting similar thoughts and yielding fruits in abundance, whether 100-fold or 1,000-fold. Sometimes we are told that wealth is something very material and tangible, something exclusive and beneficial. In some way, we forget that it's just a few dollars per capita, the total supply of dollars, which includes all the gold minted or held by governments around the world. This amount of gold could cover 60 feet of the world's supply. If we depended solely on gold, it would eventually run out. We spend hundreds, thousands, and now even millions of dollars, but the original supply of gold remains unaffected. The rule is that we can measure thousands and even millions of people who can make use of it, provided we can keep circulating the coins. One could have everything they wanted without it being a problem. Only when we begin to hoard it, when greed takes over, does the situation change. Therefore, it is clear that the only way wealth can be sustained is through its use. To use it, we must give some of it. In doing so, we cooperate for our benefit. In practical terms, we also see that wealth is not something many assumed, but on the contrary, it is the only thing that can ensure the circulation of this medium of exchange. Industrial wealth is intangible by nature. It is linked to the power of thought and has allowed many to acquire wealth that others could not dream of, often in a lifetime. Helen Wilmans offers an interesting law in The Conquest of Poverty. She says that the procedure is purely external, but the mode of action is internal, connected to the finer and fairer needs of the human spirit, beyond animality in the realm of the human. No external power can compare, because any elevation in this direction is to do exactly what Christ said we should do, to seek the kingdom of heaven within, for it is the only thing that can add all these external riches. What is the kingdom of heaven? When we answer this question, we will see that most people lack the knowledge to answer it. However, the true answer lies in the latent power in the human brain, a superabundance that those who live have the potential to access if they learn to believe in their abilities. People generally are not introspective. They lack knowledge of themselves and their potential. Those who come into contact with such knowledge can begin to perceive that they have an intellect equal to that of the person they serve. If they realize this, they can loosen the ties that hold them back and seek more than just the fact of knowing what they are capable of. Such individuals should know this, trust in it, and use their faith to ascend. Employers who recognize their workers' worth and value will find their businesses flourishing. This new recognition will elevate workers, allowing them to take their rightful place. This is the inner kingdom that must precede the external changes in society. Mental poverty projects itself outward. The spirit is expressed in visible externals, and the mind sends the spirit of visibility to affect others, changing disease to health and sin to virtue. I recently hoped for the moment when the understanding of organic chemistry would reach a new stage of human progress. We have been interested in the extraction of iron and coal from the earth, transportation, and other forms of commercial effort. But scientific research has been slow to grow. The future of humanity depends on scientific research. It is this understanding that will open the way for human progress and solve the secrets of the past and present. In this country, even under embargo, the importance of people's scientific capacity remains. Senator Frings added that when we send German chemicals and support the advancement of science, we are empowering the future. It's not just military might, it's knowledge that will open new possibilities. We have seen that scientific genius is what drives progress. To imagine the future, we must understand the power of mental chemistry, see an army of men marching, watch as they continue on their path. Men from Belgium, Austria, Russia, Poland, China, Japan, India, New Zealand, Australia. This continuous movement will shape the future, where physical force is met by superior force of intellect. When the world operates on intellectual understanding, the great masses of people will be empowered, and they will not be enslaved by the economic forces of those in power. This is the danger of the economic slavery we see today, enforced by large banks and companies. The distribution of alcohol, opium, and other addictive substances keeps people enslaved, unable to think critically about their lives. As long as people do not think, they are easy prey for manipulation. Meanwhile, the moral bankruptcy of political parties contributes to the suffering of our nation. But as the reports show, a healthier, more educated population is rising. With research, the path to progress will open, and we will no longer need legislation to force positive change. In our history, there has never been a moment when practical action and personal initiative were as necessary as now. For progress to continue, the highest qualities in individuals and governments must be brought to bear. Every man is tested by his use of his mind, and those who cultivate it will be the ones to lead us to a brighter future. Without leadership, we are desperately confused about how to find a solution, and this situation has never had such a need for a capable and constructive statesman. There has never been a statesman of this quality in office. Recently, in the St. Louis Globe Democrat, it was discussed that our resources are so scarce when in fact there should be another answer. The people of the United States and the administration are chosen by the people. This is the fundamental principle of our government, but if affairs are mismanaged and we do nothing, the situation will remain dangerous. In this perilous situation, it is the people whose judgment, knowledge, and character should justify the government. What is most striking is that those in power lack the necessary qualities for this, and they are the opposite. Men who stand out for their obstructive and destructive skills, condemning everything and proposing strange and harmful solutions. How will the government of the largest nation function? How will construction be achieved when they don't know how to build or don't want to build? What is the meaning of this popular movement? The government, without a doubt, is the expression of a great outpouring of popular discontent, but we must question whether there are real remedies for these conditions. The course of the nation must address the problems that urgently concern us and resume progress, with solutions achievable only through constructive actions. There is little disagreement about this, however, about who we are entrusting our affairs to. The individual, the government, only represents the will of the nation. Therefore, our work must focus on changing collective thinking to ensure that progress occurs. Efforts to change governments must be intelligent and organized, with current thinking being loaded with constructive thought. In past years, the values of German corporations were such that no one dreamed they wouldn't be absolutely secure. German bonds sold freely at 4% in London, and interest would be paid at maturity, yet in a currency that barely held value. Conservative German investors, those who only bought top-rated bonds, didn't mind that their money might not be worth as much later. But as compensation, the people were given plenty of beer, and when they were content, they allowed others to think for them, which prevented deep and clear thought. In November 1922, 61 bonds were issued, compared to the 61 bonds issued the week before. The value of the dollar is now something like 1/100th of what it once was. Americans are slowly and painfully building for the future, but it's impossible for them to profit in the same way. The dollar is likely to remain, enriched by a few at the cost of the broader population. The people are becoming automatons, their happiness, prosperity, and satisfaction tied to following the right course, since thought precedes action. A little artificial stimulation through the senses confuses the issue, and every action has a reaction. In turn, we come to understand that the value of a person depends on their ability to think, act, and pursue personal interests. This action must be organized, and in America, we must remember that the great task is to transform our resources into something more effective, and only then will society evolve in a meaningful way. The question is how to achieve this transformation. How can we manage to conduct the chemical processes that result in the destruction of anarchy and discontent? The government must act in the best interest of the people, without giving in to those who are only interested in their own advantage. There is no greater authority today than Mussolini's. The king has no authority. His power is absolute. He has already imposed laws of his own making, and although people are being paid high wages, it is not for reasons of necessity. This is the result of fostering a spirit of complacency. There are no other conditions like this, except in countries where the people are conditioned by the distribution of intoxicating beverages. A famous European statesman views the current situation as akin to a war like that of 1914 to 1918, where the defeated were made to repair the damage through diligent labor. But this nightmare is far from over, and the people are still adrift. A few years of war have left the conquered materialistically broken, with millions of men not dedicating their lives to restoring what was lost. The world cannot simply restore itself the day after, as that is beyond the bounds of practicality. It is like the collapse of ancient Greece and Rome, which fell under the weight of their luxuries and power, crumbling under the weakness of their hearts and minds. Chapter 10. Medicine discusses the abandonment of truth in the practice of medicine. There is an undeniable, almost crude nature to how medicine is practiced when it blinds the practitioner to what is truly effective. The psychic method, largely unrecognized in therapy, can elevate the spirits, improve blood flow, and bring the dying back from the brink of death. Faith allows for miracles, even when the best-known treatments fail. The base of the medical profession is grounded in methods that use chemical principles. These have created new medications and treatments, but we must still add more solutions. Cocaine, for example, has given us active principles for medicine, but when the use of artificial substitutes becomes a habit, it creates an empty void. Over time, the individual becomes irreparably dependent on these substances, and these habits lead to mental and physical deterioration. If this process continues unchecked, the victim will gradually sink deeper into addiction. Thus, we must find ways to break free of these destructive patterns without allowing ourselves to become slaves to substances that numb the mind and the body. It is essential to restore balance and clarity, just as we must restore balance to society, breaking free from the destructive forces that hold us back. Overloading a digestive system already deteriorated, the disturbances are strictly local and no longer affect the body as a whole. These issues stem from a deeply rooted cause, which may indicate a more serious illness. In such cases, the problem affects all parts of the body. At this point, if the administration in the central system fails, it could last for a long time. But if there is weakness in the system, a shock might occur. Dr. Lindlar says that the rational philosophy of illness, its cause and purpose, is that the nature of illness is corrective in its purpose. According to the law, there is no suffering, illness, or evil that has not been transgressed somewhere by someone, whether due to ignorance, indifference, or volition. The science of natural life and disease is primarily an effort to restore the normal functions of the body, guiding it back to its natural course, as everything in nature does. Thus, we learn slowly but laboriously that the law is the only means of prevention and healing. The law of action and reaction and the law of nature's healing reveal to us the truth of the processes of health, disease, and healing. Discord with the laws of our being is where only through the law can we master it and achieve and maintain health. The cause and nature of disease are intertwined with life itself, because the processes of health and vitality are what we call life. There are two aspects of life. One is the nature of life, or vital force, which governs the physical, electrical, magnetic, and chemical activities of the human organism. From this perspective, life is like a succession of energetic processes. However, this has become outdated with the discoveries of modern science, which are leading us to understand both the material and spiritual aspects of being. The vital force is regarded as the primary force of all forces, an energy that pervades, warms, and animates everything. It is divine, like the essence of the word or the great intelligence in motion, circulating through the ether and the different atoms and elements of matter. Electricity, with its positive and negative charges, is part of the energy that makes everything move. Without this vital force, the energy in the universe, like the suns and planets, would cease. Instead of being the source of life and all its processes, electricity is simply an expression of the vital force, which some call God, others call nature. Its understanding is that it is the supreme power, the energy that governs the molecules and cells in the human body. This force always strives to repair, heal, and restore, working to eliminate obstructions and re-establish normalcy, so the inner power can do its work. The forces of nature move in cycles from a thought to a diamond or platinum. These are ways energy moves. While an atom was once thought to be the smallest imaginable unit, it now represents the beginning of a greater interconnected universe. We have reason to believe that there is no real difference between an atom of iron and one of hydrogen, apart from the number of electric charges or particles that vibrate around one another. Thus, an atom is a small universe in itself, just like the stars and planets that vibrate around each other. When we say that life is beautiful and ordered, it is because the laws of life are harmonious. only man with his freedom of choice can disturb this harmony, leading to illness. Both the laws of nature and disease, as outlined in the Catechism of Nature, reflect the harmonious relationship between the elements and forces that make up the moral and spiritual being in alignment with nature. Applied to individual life, illness arises naturally when the destructive principle of nature disrupts the normal, vibrating conditions of the body, which are set by nature itself within the realms of life and human action. Chapter 11 discusses Thompson J. Hudson's idea that all laws are universal in their application and that there is an intelligence controlling the functions of the body. This intelligence or energy is the same power that governs the healing process. This is what all therapeutic organisms seek, even if no school claims to be capable of returning the body to its normal state. No one denies that the body is intelligent, each part of it performing its special duties without a central mind. However, as the organism becomes more complex, this intelligence, which guides every fiber of the body, becomes central in controlling its functions. Materialistic scientists view this intelligence as separate from the body, but research shows that the energy that normally regulates the body is controlled by the mental organism. This energy activates the body, and when it fails to do so, the structure of the body begins to deteriorate. Thus, the most important and normal way to stimulate the body is through the mind, which operates more directly than any physical agency because it is intelligent. It is clear that material remedies cannot permanently energize the body. They are sometimes harmful, lacking in therapeutic power, and cannot produce lasting healing effects. This is because the mental organism which controls the body is the only entity capable of properly directing its energies to restore health. What is needed for the restoration of health is not necessarily surgery or material remedies, but the activation of the mental organism that governs the body. As Professor Clouston stated in his inaugural address, the mind has an essential role in both good and ill health. The mental cortex plays a central role in all functions and injuries. All organs and functions can be unified into a vital entity when they are governed by the mental organism. This is the apex of evolutionary development, where the unity of all body parts reaches its highest expression. We now understand that the complexity of each neuron, with its hundreds of connections, demonstrates the intricate interplay of the universal energy of the nervous system and its marvelous arrangements for mind, repair, and healing. When we understand the cerebral cortex in the organic hierarchy, neither Dolonet nor any record of Dr. Barkas's case of organs with pain everywhere that was cured, at least experimentally, by the medicine administered by an experienced nurse, the death would result from the state, and the medication was carefully given at 7:12, 5:10, with meticulous attention. The pains were cured, all diseases were treated, and since it excludes all material remedies, it generally associates with discoveries. It was found that a woman suffering from constant pain in her hand and heart was cured by a method other than distilled water, as many believe that only physical or spiritual diseases exist. Alfred Schofield, Maryland, documented 250 cases of cured diseases, including abscesses, dyspepsia, internal ailments, rheumatism, heart problems, broken bones, headaches in the chapel in North London, with sulfur and iron baths. He believed that all cures came from these waters, or from the combination of water and diet, and that there must be something more. To get closer to the source of all its secrets, the doctor faces the cures directly and also with surprise, when discovering that the local doctors, when the patient continues, often feel not only surprised, but also disgusted to realize the mental powers involved. He frequently adds to his prescriptions and asserts confidently that the medication is a powerful agent for ensuring health. Thus, if common sense is ignored, its laws, for good or ill, should clearly be indicated by legitimate teachers, rather than relying on the unarguable successes of the medical profession, which is slowly progressing towards a better understanding. Our consideration will replace those who still prescribe any treatment, while those who take medicine seriously will be replaced with individuals worthy of the century in which we live. Chapter 12, addressing the causes of things, highlights that it was Mechnikov, a physicist, who applied ethics to life for true wisdom. He referred to this condition and said it must be modified and directed if we want to go through the normal cycle of life. The pineal gland and the body are parts of a whole, influenced by cosmic force, And who will say that this force, prana, divine healing, is only material or spiritual? Plato described a plant rooted in the heavens, and we agree that it can be said that man has two aspects, with the first originating in the second. An organism is defined as a whole, which in turn influences all its parts, and although it is a main part, the human organism has often been ignored by those who overlook body disorders that are not immediately visible. For years, auto-intoxication and disturbances in the body have been a greater concern as these operations are localized and definitely recognized in the realm of diagnosis. The art of recognizing the mind's influence dates back to antiquity, from Hippocrates and probably even earlier, with the custom of reciting certain verses of healing. Hippocrates was reluctant to undertake pilgrimages, believing they did no harm, while others insisted that they were essential, especially for ailments like lethargy and obesity. A general pilgrimage on foot was deemed the most effective, as insisted by famous doctors. The idea was that everything depended on the individual and that through it they would find God. Today, proponents of other schools generously admit the value of these approaches and accept that they contribute to science. For cases of dislocation, fractures, or disorders of the blood vessels, the recommendation is to consult a competent surgeon, not because the mind is incapable of addressing these, but because proper treatment is essential. Even today, among people who misuse or neglect the mental treatment of bodily ailments, unnecessary suffering can be avoided with quick results. Sir William Musler, BT.MD, emphasized the philosophy of interconnectedness, referring to the idea of intercommunication between humans. He suggested that the old humanities and new sciences face the fact that their substance is the same. Modern science, such as bioplasma, is now expanding, and it is only a matter of time before its broadening understanding is incorporated into healing practices. The approach to healing is shifting as more scientists begin to recognize that the patient's body is not just physical, but has a spiritual component too. The metaphysical aspects of the body, including the understanding that physical symptoms often result from spiritual imbalances, are starting to gain acceptance. Germs may not be the sole cause of disease. Bacteria are the result of impure water or other factors we can't always see, manipulate, or touch. Disease, then, is a form of distress that can be replaced by constructive solutions. Healing, therefore, comes not from just treating effects, but from addressing the root causes, and when approached from a holistic perspective, the body's energies are corrected and restored. When destructive or disharmonious thoughts enter the mind, they manifest in the body, but positive, constructive thoughts will trigger healing responses. Every doctor must recognize that thoughts are spiritual, and once they find fertile ground, they begin to materialize in the objective world. Not all patients are receptive, and thoughts can be subconsciously loaded with gifts of healing. The subconscious receives these thoughts through contact with the objective world. This is the mechanism through which the body systems, chemical, cellular, nervous, respond to mental instructions, leading to physical healing. The chemical processes involved then generate the necessary secretions, sending instructions through the body's systems. All of this works together to restore the individual to health. This process, much like an advanced repair department, operates subconsciously, but unless we make use of this inner system, we might not fully realize how it functions. By amplifying the subconscious, we align with its healing power, and our life and environment are shaped accordingly. This is the mechanism designed by the subconscious mind to guide the healing process. The subconscious mind, with all its marvelous capabilities, connects with the conscious mind when it is attuned to it. It will always remain in solution, waiting in the world, emerging like a burst of music or a funeral march, or as a vital march as you prefer. Science deals with vital processes and the infinite divisibility of matter, which can also be proportional to the patient or to the cell, as the pathogenic cell is modified. Dr. Chesler, studying the elements of nature and their support, sustenance, and life supply from the blood, identified necessary cellular salts such as sodium chloride, sodium phosphate, sodium sulfate, iron phosphate, and silica. Milk contains all these in combination. Cremation reduces the body to a different salt or a combination of salts for use, and the manifestation of these salts through their proper proportions is essential for health. The treatment of symptoms involves the elimination of any imbalance. However, It must be remembered that cells do not simply accept more than they need. They accept what is necessary and reject what is not, and the quality of inorganic tissue salts and the necessary quantity of cellular salts is vital. A lack of these leads to imperfect cellular action, which underlies all manifestations of form, distribution, and the grouping of elements, not only in form, but also in their functions and qualities. Chapter 11 provides illustrations about the elements and compounds in biological systems and their application in the grouping of molecules, tissues, organs, and forms, from the origin and differentiation of cells to the configuration that marks both physical and mental boundaries. It is well known that any substance can exist separately, and the nature of the molecule is determined by the electrons it contains. Since all molecules are molecular, it is deduced that, in the end, the negative and positive charges in the molecule determine the form, whether perfect or imperfect. These are simply matters of being electronically supplied or deprived of the necessary elements. However, only the spirit, the mind, the image of man works towards the perfection of the human form. For this primitive perfection to be realized, not only must it be supplied, but the surrounding forces must be consistent with the same principle, so that we can achieve a defined grouping of negative electrons. These variables lead to the realization that divine mind works behind these groupings, as the divine mind creates the images of living beings. Ultimate science is idealism, which proposes that the mind exists in the spiritual realm. We always face a psychophysical parallel, the mind and matter, yet nothing can exist purely alone. The reality can be aligned with the mind itself, descending through power while inevitably limited by existing conditions. W. Carey states that so-called disease is not a disease, but the result of a lack of dynamic balance that produces discomfort, pain, exudation, and increased blood movement. The chemical law restores equilibrium, and this effect is called fever. The union of inorganic and organic substances shows their relationship with so-called disease. This system, which includes cellular or tissue-building elements like oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, calcium, and gases, is perfect in its combination. As long as the correct combinations are provided, the body will function well, and the symptoms of disease will disappear. The human body is always functioning properly as long as the necessary ingredients are present in the foods we consume. The process of life materializes through the law of affinity, but when assimilation of food fails, it leads to the disintegration of the body. This shows that the chemical components that carry out the process of digestion do not form the blood, but simply carry the inorganic or cellular substances contained in foods through the intestinal tract to supply energy to the body. This shows clearly that air, the essential element for life, enters the lungs, and from there it affects the blood. Thus it is evident that the blood is directly influenced by the air we breathe. As we mentally observe, these actions increase the dynamic activity of blood molecules, including sodium, iron, magnesium, and silica. The natural movement of the body is low, but the rate of activity in the natural human state must evolve into the supernatural in order to perform the regenerative process. Millions of processes are activated, and then the individual is guided to a higher state of awareness. The spiritual eye, when opened, reveals that no one is immune to the struggles of past regrets that eternally emerge into the present, bringing with them the harvest of our life experiences. Chapter 14 presents an account from Dr. Amilko in a book titled Mirko, describing a clinic in Nancy, where despite being crowded, anxious patients occupied every space, including windowsills, stools, and folding chairs. Dr. Koba worked to help these patients, emphasizing that the power of healing lies within the patient themselves. As Dr. Kobe dedicates his time to this practice, he has profoundly impacted our understanding of life, as thoughts change and improve our lives, just as society's thoughts shape global conditions. The process of self-suggestion is essential. If each person could overcome the illusion of possession and accept the value of life through revaluation, they would see their thoughts and their environments transform. The power of God in shaping the world is illustrated in the work of Dr. Emil Cow, whose practices have shown the power of mental and physical healing. It is through these insights that humanity can rise from darkness to the dawn, bringing change to individuals and the world. Cow says that Mr. Barex visited him during the first English consultation that he attended with the purpose of consciously seeking Dr. Kobe's advice. The two men discussed much of the method, and Kobe says that Mr. Prox skillfully grasped it in such a way that it seemed simple and clear, a method for healing the sick and improving the healthy. Through practice, we can ensure the well-being of both mind and body. Now let's move to the back of the house, where there is a pleasant atmosphere, and the groups of patients occupy the waiting and consultation rooms, which are packed. There is a sense of improvement as Kobe tells a patient, "You have been planting good seeds." He then explains to another woman with complaints that thinking about them only creates more problems. He tells a young man with inflamed eyes and a worker that they will experience full relief. A young woman who has been practicing the method at home for 10 days says she feels much better and starts enjoying life. Mr. Kobe calls attention to another patient who has suffered for nearly 10 years and predicts recovery. He checks in on a woman who had been misdiagnosed by a doctor but is now fully recovered. A third patient claims to have been cured of an ulcer. Another person reports a complete recovery after just one session. Kobe tells a man, "For 10 years you thought you couldn't do it. But now think about it. Now you can lift your arm." The man attempts to lift it but feels pain. Kobe instructs him, "Keep going and repeat after me as quickly as you can." He encourages the man to believe he can raise his arm all the way up. The man does so, and Kobe quietly whispers, "You are healed, it's wonderful." The man proves it by hitting Kobe lightly on the shoulder. In a few minutes, the patient is walking easily towards the garden. The healing continues with Kobe speaking quietly and monotonously. He tells the patient, "I'm going to pronounce these words. They will be fixed, impressed, and engraved in your mind so that you are not consciously aware of what is happening." He continues, "Every day, 3 times at lunch, you will feel hungry. You will want to eat, but never too much. Just enough. You will chew softly and enjoy your food, and your stomach will not be bothered." Kobe and Miss Smith focus on helping people throughout their lives. Although their methods are not commercially profitable, Kobe has brought recognition not only in France but also across Europe and America. His work often keeps him busy with 15 or 16 hours a day dedicated to this form of healing. Kobe explains that this form of healing is not just about the individual, but also about humanity at large, a conflict of ideas that should not be destructive but fulfilling. This process fosters human unity and understanding, as each person recognizes the same principles in themselves. When a person begins to see themselves in this way, they realize that not only are they part of themselves, but they are also interconnected with everyone else. Their work is essential for realizing the potential of the mind. This work involves having a clear understanding of the body and how it functions. We must assume as true that we need to know where and how things are generated. If we are ignorant, we are limited in our capacity to transform our lives. Kobe reflects on how, if we could experience life outside the body or see from a different perspective, we would realize that the eye has not yet seen, nor the ear heard, the full potential of the mind. The brain transmits thoughts to other organs, and throughout history, great individuals have had finer qualities of the brain. This fine brain leads to better clarity in perceiving life. The teachings of the great men remind us that, just like the planets, we must first desire, then believe, and only then can we be entertained by the beliefs we hold. The poverty of mind can be dispelled through suggestion and directed thought. If the person accepts this influence, they will undergo transformative changes. Mr. Hamilton Mont shares his own experience. He says he was a man addicted to tobacco, but managed to free himself from the habit. As a carpenter, he used to crave tobacco, but slowly, through mental effort and guided thought, he began to reduce his consumption. His wife helped him, and with the application of the method, he became free from this destructive habit. Through the right application of mental suggestion, changes can be profound. Mont explains how reading and thinking about the power of directed thought slowly shifted his perspective. He saw the truth that positive, constructive thoughts feed our life, and as he thought, he began to see improvement. He shares that his transformation came through recognizing the control of his own thoughts over his life and his habits. Similarly, Kobe teaches that directed thought, when used properly, can help us eliminate negative habits and encourage health and well-being. With continuous practice, change will occur. Mont explains that in just 6 days of treatment, he overcame his tobacco addiction and is now healthier, stronger, and more energetic. He attributes this to the power of constructive and directed thought. Finally, Kolb uses an instrument called a tuning coil, which is attuned to vibrations of a specific length. These vibrations allow the passage of energy, and although other wireless vibrations may also pass, only the ones in harmony with the mind can influence the body. This principle shows that our minds work in a similar way, connected through vibrations, allowing for healing and transformation. Only through our willpower can we tune in, just as we can with animal impulses of nature, or through educational or mental nature. Afterward, we can receive vibrations of purely thought-driven energies, which are given to mankind. Of course, you will see a modern mansion built without the application of directed thought and visualization, which is the backbone of suggestion when used skillfully. Suggestion can heat up and accelerate desire until it reaches the very core of the wish, where it grows. The vibrations of thought associated with desire are like seeds falling into fertile ground, where thoughts and actions produce results. The builder with his plans, the seamstress with her pattern, or the leader of constructive thought all contribute to the quality of life. All thoughts must truly become ours by rooting them in personal experience. Goethe's philosophy of a sick mind was asked by Marbet the doctor to explain psychoanalysis prophetically. To treat a sick mind, one must remove the memories written in the brain, using a sweet antidote to relieve the heaviness on the heart. Today there are few people who are free from certain aversions or complexes that can distort the victim's will. Even when this unpleasant memory has long been forgotten, it may still linger, affecting our dignity or vanity depending on one's preference. This is how complexes are formed. For example, in the case of a patient who heard a thunderstorm while it had been forgotten for years, a confession arose, and such memories of fear obstructed the psychoanalyst's work. The deeply rooted complexes must be removed like weeds from the mind. When we remember that psyche in Greek means soul, we gain a better understanding of the psychology of a sick mind, not just of the dangerous matter of complexes in forms ranging from mild fears, certain foods, claustrophobia, the fear of open spaces, or stage fright. The list of such mental illnesses would be exhaustive. With the help of a psychoanalyst, many people can cure themselves through elaborate mental processes. The psychoanalyst encourages the person to feel comfortable physically, in a relaxed state, and to express anything that comes to mind about their feelings. Sooner or later, the cause or original experience that had caused the issue will come to light, and the explanation provided will be enough to eradicate the obsession, which can have both physical and mental effects. Richard Inales, a professor of neurology at Northwestern University, mentions several cases of functional nervous disorders. Fear is an important factor that is not immediately obvious. These disorders can be divided into groups. One such group involves a man who had been referred to him because he was very carefree, but a closer examination revealed that household conflicts had led him into a phobia. Fear dominated him until he freed himself from it, but his problem had initially been viewed physically. Through psychoanalysis, the subconscious cause of his fear was exposed. It's like removing a splinter from the eye. Once you realize it's there, it's no longer a problem. A rancher from the Western Plains had a similar issue. He experienced general nervousness and an inability to relax, constantly fearing stomach cancer. This fear exaggerated every physical sensation. He lived through dangerous years without trembling, but when he heard that 3 other ranchers had died of cancer, the fear struck him. He started feeling insecure, like his body was failing him. Through psychoanalysis, his subconscious fears were uncovered, and once the cause was identified and addressed, his fear of cancer vanished. Another patient, a police officer, had lost weight and experienced general nervousness. He had been in active service for many years, participating in numerous dangerous situations, including gunfights. His disease was the result of pure and malicious fear. The fear was not based on any actual danger, but had been maintained in his subconscious for years. The moment the fear was identified, it lost its hold over him. Another woman had suffered for years with a general weakness and kept experiencing specific traumatic memories. These memories were related to events from her childhood. After recalling these experiences, she underwent treatment, and after 60 days she was fine. The effect of this healing was natural, and over time, her subconscious mind stopped clinging to the trauma that had lasted for 20 or 25 years. The subconscious mind has a perfect memory, often carrying forward traits from ancestors. The subconscious mind stores experiences until the person's life or health is at risk. The ultimate goal is to live without pain and die without pain. Like fruit that falls at the right time, life events happen naturally, even if they are interfered with. In the end, we often forget something, but the subconscious mind holds on to it, even though the conscious mind discards it. This happens when a problem arises while you are sleeping. The subconscious gets excited and distressed by it and is unable to resolve it, while the conscious mind abandons it and lets it go. If there is a difficult situation in your affairs, if you just let go, your anxiety will cease. The subconscious will normally bring you back to health and conditions. If you cannot swim above the depth, you are drowning. But if you trust it, the subconscious will be there in every situation, working in your favor. If you can only persuade your conscious mind to let go of the tension of the struggle, for example, every time a child gets angry, the reaction is repeated over and over again. The third time will be worse than the second, and the fourth will be worse than the third. In a short time, it will become hard to stop this cycle, as the reaction will be subject to the irritating influence of the subconscious, and the action-reaction process will make it easier to get angry, providing extra incentive to continue in that anger. Now, an abnormal condition contains in itself the pain of the body that has less resistance. For example, sharp attacks of indigestion can develop into PR disease and eventually other illnesses. It is evident that these conditions are effects, but if the individual understands that thoughts are causes and can control their thoughts, this will tend to erase them. The light of truth gradually dispels the accumulated anguish, whether it be jealousy, fear, lust, greed, or any other negative force in the subconscious. Each of them can eventually affect the body and the nature of the illness responsible for the condition. Frederick notes a common observation that everything is suggestion, which can be positive or negative. A certain epidemic, for instance, can be imitative of the suggestion implanted both by others and through the large number of discussions on a subject, which awaken primitive effects of great intensity in the person predisposed to it. These can accumulate and eventually become strong enough to control behavior, and the rest of the social group can also be negatively influenced by the same suggestion, which will eventually emerge in the form of anger or a desire to act. It is interesting to note that one often hears the term primitive violence, which is far greater than what one might expect. It is believed that this comes from a method with which the subconscious strongly censures itself. It is the static energy of the mind from which actions are born. The tradition whispers that in the sky there is happiness for those who seek it, but everyone is prone to being blinded by the shine of false honors. However, for those who are open with innocence, simplicity, and faith, the bluebird of happiness sings and lives eternally. In the final chapter of psychology, the observation of the activities of personal consciousness studied in schools and universities reveals that self-awareness does not constitute the totality of our consciousness. Very complex activities develop, and we may not always be aware of them or consciously plan them. No one around the baby fully understands the complexities of physical life, yet there is an intelligence in those complex processes like the heartbeat, glandular secretion, and excretion. It is evident that the body and its cells operate with a high degree of intelligence, and these processes are subconscious. Each person has their personal subconscious mind which blends with the universal subconscious or universal consciousness. Think of it like waves in the sea. The waves rise above the water level, but a small mass of water moves with each wave, blending with the stillness below. The water of the lake can illustrate both personal and universal subconsciousness. The personal subconsciousness connects with the universal, and as a child grows, it becomes aware of the laws of consciousness like purity, freedom, goodness, and love, and begins to align itself with these more and more. What is essential to understand is that the subconscious develops continuously and is known as the subconscious department. It operates through the senses and involves two nervous systems in the body, each with its field of operation. The sympathetic nervous system and the subconscious work through two different systems, but there is a very clear line of activity connecting them. The function of the subconscious mind is to preserve life and monitor all automatic functions like muscular action. It restores the body and uses energy in the work of construction. If we picture a small piece of wood moving back and forth in the water, It will create ripples and the water will gradually accumulate and flow over the wood. Similarly, the subconscious mind receives and repeats actions. If the mind decides to change the direction of that flow, it may face resistance, but the subconscious will eventually adjust. This principle applies to every phase of human consciousness. Whether the experiences are good or bad, the spirit is creative, and the subconscious mind reflects what the conscious mind holds. If we maintain thoughts of art, beauty, and truth, these will be reflected in our subconscious and our surroundings. However, if we harbor thoughts of illness, scarcity, or limitation, the conditions will reflect those negative thoughts. We can think whatever we want, but the results are immutable. There is no such thing as good or bad. Only the seeds of different kinds of thoughts are planted, and the fruits of those thoughts are harvested. Self-awareness allows the individual to think, know, want, and choose. The cerebrospinal nervous system is the system that operates the body's growth processes consciously, including the heartbeat, food digestion, and overall mental intelligence. The subconscious, which controls complex problems, is sometimes referred to as the universal mind or the divine mind. But remember, words are simply thoughts, and if you grasp the thought, you will grasp the creative spirit. The sympathetic nervous system is the instrument in contact with feelings and emotions, which are never guided by reason, since emotions are far more primal. Therefore, the individual will frequently act with reason and intellect. It is axiomatic that two things cannot be true at the same time. What is true about things is that any thought that seeks to enter the mind will be quickly displaced by another thought. The value of a statement is rooted in an affirmation already made by the senses. I am growing better, stronger, more powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. These thoughts, when repeated, will become automatic and no longer merely external manifestations. By constantly maintaining such thoughts, in a comparatively short period of time, they will begin to change in alignment with the principle that can be set into motion. Many people use this with excellent results. There are two phases of action in relation to the mind. It is quite analogous to the relationship between a weather vane and the atmosphere, which provokes an action from the atmosphere, producing a feeling in the subconscious mind that characterizes thought. From this, it follows that if you deny the conditions of your thoughts, you are denying these conditions. The law of growth necessarily governs the denial of unsatisfactory conditions. The plant may remain visible for some time with roots, but it will gradually fade away. The contemplation of unsatisfactory conditions will bring about an opposite effect, exactly counter to the natural outcome. It will have an opposite effect on the unsatisfactory conditions, thus providing the growth needed. Just as the tide reaches the sea, neither time nor space can restrict it. John Boros, chapter 17. Metaphysics. Things that have affinity with each other in the proper proportions produce water. Water is visible, but germs, which have life or intelligence, are the spirit. Thought is the only activity that possesses a result. A thought leaves its source and, with those it is aligned with, forms a nucleus that sends out energy, maintaining it in solution. Soon, the thought becomes the form given to it by the thinker. 1,000,000 people sending out thoughts of hate and distress contribute to the creation of a microbe, such as the germ of the flu. No one knows how the deadly germ arose. Just as there is an infinite variety of germs, both constructive and destructive, neither will germinate and flourish until their roots take hold. All thoughts, all things emerge from the individual who opens the doors of their mind to such types or descriptions. If one believes in magicians or witches, they are opening the door to such thoughts, and they will come upon them. But if one believes in help, they will discover that, as is their faith, so it is for them. It was said that the voice of reason becomes clearer and louder to man. Previously, men showed that others believed in something, and it became inevitable for them to decide which faith to follow. In our days, attempts to ignore reason are precisely the same. The common nature of men prevents them from returning to their true self. God cannot silence that voice because it is a part of all rational consciousness in humanity. Reason tells man that the universe is one, and when we see that some people fail to understand mental or spiritual laws, reason tells us that the law does not make exceptions and that this law is everywhere. It is evident to all who recognize that all manifestations are governed by principles. The manifestation of these laws shows us that the omnipresent must permeate and interpenetrate everything inseparable from it. Science teaches that everything exists in varying degrees, from its crude and visible form to the highest levels of refinement. The spirit can never be separated from the elements that act in gaseous conditions, and the elements interact in lower combinations of gas or fluid, allowing them to form new principles. Ultimately, the mineral rises to the sphere of ether, which is not just ether in different forms, but energy in motion, recorded by distant receptors. The ether is an invisible, colorless, odorless substance filling the space between the earth, the sun, and the stars. Atoms of denser substances like steel are just vibrations of ether, transmitted through copper, for instance. We have abundant evidence of the effects of this force, which we recognize as refined, becoming the plastic manifestation of its power. This power is expressed in the mind's influence on its subject, such as in hypnosis, where the hypnotist can control the subject's body at will. This shows that the elements of the mind are subject to control by the spirit or the action of the mind. When active, it gives manifestation to what lies behind it. Whether through the intelligence of the human mind or the divine mind, the force that governs and rules the universe also organizes it. The universe was created or evolved, often called the temple of the infinite. Wisdom is the application of knowledge for happiness, ease, and health. Ignorance, on the other hand, prevents us from understanding the priority of the metaphysical craft, which is to bring man into understanding of the world in which he lives, moves, and has his being. All that is his rightful inheritance. It is absolutely impossible for the doctor to give mental suggestions unless the suggestion is received through the conscious mind, with the help of no other aid than the senses. The objective mind is the mind that wants and acts. The practitioner suggests, and this suggestion is instantly rejected by the mind, as it is unacceptable to the conscious mind. Thus, no result would be achieved. The action is universal, not individual, and will always satisfy all human needs. The universe is the Father that Jesus spoke of when he said, "The Father who dwells in me, he does the work." Metaphysics is spiritual, not material, subjective, not objective. The sympathetic nervous system is the system of nerves that governs all vital processes, such as food digestion and the construction of various secretions. Indeed, the sympathetic nervous system governs all vital processes in the body, including those outside the realm of conscious awareness. The mind is omnipresent, meaning it exists everywhere, and neither time nor space restrict it. The creative force of the universe is a subjective realization of perfection, taken by the mind in response to the experiences of the patient. Some will say that this is doubtful, but the great master anticipated this criticism. "In my Father's house there are many mansions." Perfection, while the law operates with precision, can seem inexperienced or naive. The capacity to turn the senses toward the uncreated realm, where all is brought to be, requires awareness of the vibrational energies. Some, in their enthusiasm, will discover that the world they had believed in was an illusion and marvel at the realization that some are mere superbeasts, while others are superhumans. Metaphysics and the method of its application, in such conditions, can only hope to depend on or frequently weaken the consciousness. Therefore, it is necessary and desirable to know the truth. Most people who are interested in or know someone who has experienced it have repeatedly declared that truth is not absolute, meaning that the only way to know truth is through demonstration. Or, assuming the basis of this assumption, make the demonstration. This is the reason why it is said that you will know the truth. The manifestations, the characteristics of observation, constitute knowledge. If you have observed and realized the fact, you will have knowledge. If it were the case that all the manifestations, the characteristics of these manifestations, especially those on which their characteristics are based, then through modern, progressive mental and spiritual awakening, certain aspects of man were discovered. Likewise, spiritual revelations literally opened up, revealing the marvelous cosmos in all directions. Thus, a double movement, to know the real man and to know the spiritual world. In this age, with so much life and vitality, the minds of millions of people are in agreement that, in the philosophical sense, the truth must then be a fact. What is a fact is always a fact. It cannot be anything else. It is a truth in the United States, in China, in Japan. It is a fact that exists in the nature of things, without which actions and our business operations would not function. However, It is a fact that cannot be touched, felt, or grasped by anyone. It has no color, size, or shape, yet it is no less a fact. Yesterday, today, and always, you can use this fact as often as you wish, and it will not be destroyed. It is a fact, like the number 9. Therefore, this is a fact or the truth that a person can possess. Knowledge that is not based on the truth would not be knowledge at all. Fake money is not recognized as real, so truth is everything that is true. Thus, we cannot say that something false is true, because what is false does not exist by its own nature. Absolute truth or knowledge is the only thing that exists. The word is neither scientific nor exact. Metaphysicians would not give it to children or those directly under their control. We do not give our children direct access to metaphysical principles until they are at least 7 years old, under the direction of a teacher, and warned about the dangers they might face. If spiritual metaphysics were to become popular, people would not take the advanced work seriously before gaining knowledge. Acquiring knowledge entails an obligation if one enters the school of spirituality. It is assumed, by that same fact, that the nervous system will automatically organize on a higher plane, guided by the law of being or by experiencing suffering. The resurrection of the dead is not a process of material mentalities, but a transition from the material plane to the spiritual one, entering the promised land only after reaching the spiritual world, which is when it really begins functioning in the material world. Those who are dead cannot see, hear, or experience. There are many practices that an individual must abandon, and these can be discarded effortlessly by the individual. In the old world, it is generally found that a person must often suffer severely before understanding spiritual laws. Chapter 18. Philosophy. Molecules are made of atoms are made of energy, and this energy can be incomprehensible to us except for what we call mind or will. Therefore, mind and will are not in conflict but are in perfect agreement. The creation of the world says first that the parts of the universe are in a balance so infinite that the wisdom which has planned it must be infinite. The will that has set and ordered the activities of eternal, unchanging laws is also omnipresent. Everywhere these laws govern the directions of energies and processes, and since the universe is infinite, the will must sustain and move it with a power that never tires. As the universe is infinite, so too must the power, wisdom, and will be infinite. Science encompasses everything, and we can conceive of something greater than all that we know. This being is the last to dwell in us, and to this being all laws, life, and force must be referred. Every living being must be sustained by this force. The difference in individual lives is measured by how they manifest this greater intelligence, from plant life to man, the highest of animals, as indicated by the individual's power to consciously adjust to their environment. This adjustment is nothing other than the universal mind that we are meant to obey. This adjustment manifests itself in the increased exercise of our ability to choose, in the power of the will, meaning that self-awareness grows, increases, and develops because it is a spiritual activity. In relation to spiritual things, we use this law proportionately to our usage of it. However, there is a diametrically opposed law that governs life, which is the quality or principle of energy manifesting as growth and activity in organic objects. There is only one supreme principle, the Absolute, which man can define as universal intelligence, spirit, energy, truth, love, etc. This principle governs by the particular relationship of phenomena. At that moment, the mind is present in the forms of protoplasm or cells, perceives its surroundings, and initiates evidence of the mind as an organism begins to specialize. Some organisms perform one task, and their mental powers increase while each action results from thought, either automatic or subconscious. Therefore, the mind can liberate itself from these actions, but new actions will, in turn, return to their original form. Until very recently, it was said that matter changes in its forms, and we were told that a building turned into ashes, losing its essence. We were also told that all forms of matter could be resolved into certain elements. It was assumed that the atom was the ultimate particle. However, with the discovery of radium, it was found that atoms are made of smaller particles called electrons. These particles, such as hydrogen or oxygen atoms, are separated by vast distances. For comparison, atoms are separated by distances far larger than the size of the solar system. When we remember that a molecule, which is invisible to the microscope, consists of millions of particles, we come to understand that the last particle of matter, the electron or ion, constantly sends its ions into space. Thus matter is constantly changing form. The process called creation involves matter being formed into specific shapes. Matter, therefore, is mind or spirit. The spirit of a thing attracts electrons, which gradually accumulate according to the law of growth. True things that we see are temporary. John Body DDS wrote that as we ascend, we find that each step below has not yet been discovered, just as lead, rock, and earth are still rarefied in terms of electricity. This electricity moves through particles and is a fluid too subtle to conceive, almost imperceptible, yet it is present everywhere. Electricity, like the subtle particles of our air, remains unseen, yet it is the fundamental force in nature. As for movement, it is found in the positive and negative forces that balance each other. As we take another step forward, we must reach that substance. This movement is thought and power. Given the argument presented now, it is evident that we are discussing the highest and most sublime substance of being, absolutely and positively irresistible, defying contemplation through various degrees. As we advance in our delightful sublimated journey, it cannot be seen or weighed. It moves at miles per minute, capable of traveling around us, leaving us astonished and amazed. But like a chain, we are compelled to move forward until we reach the substance of being, a substance that possesses the attributes of the original and from which all other movements derive. This is the infinite mind, which takes on embodied form. Contact with electricity gives it movement. The invisible moves the universe and carries out all actions. The mind is, therefore, the absolute perfection of its own movement, as its great attribute is to move other substances that are inherently still. It disposes and controls everything absolutely, silently, as conceived by the universe, and at the heart of nature the soul rests in the arms of Mother Nature. You would hear its voice, feel its arms around you, guiding you to its will, to teach you the only truth. A memory will arise of forgotten mysteries, leading to regions beyond words, to where the flames of creation are born and how stars are made. Then the gears of the bird of life, tuned to all that breathes, with all that strives for silence, whose name is love. Chapter 1. The nations and individuals, by their attitude towards each other, their ideals, and their role in shaping history, show that life means more than any turmoil. We once thought we had to choose between the Bible and Darwin, but as it is said, every educated man in London knows that the Hebrews and Babylonians were firmly established and very different. There is no need to debate the definite results of modern research. In today's spiritualized world, bad economies remain, and the more we are convinced of our faith, the more we distance ourselves from superstitions. However, modern discontent and diseases are deep and destructive, and remedies and suppression may alleviate symptoms, but they do not cure them. Worse symptoms follow, and the patches applied to a worn-out garment do not fix the underlying issue. Constructive measures must be applied to our thinking, a philosophy of life that works 7 days a week, not one that only functions in favorable circumstances. What we want are results. The apparent impossibilities are the same as those on the unbeaten path of thought, crossing the superstition and climbing the mountains of rituals until we reach the promised land of revelation. Intelligence is a creative force that automatically makes things happen for those with ears to hear. This optimism shines in the midst of doubt and ignorance, and as enlightenment grows, greed fades. We are anticipating a future where truth will free people who will realize this truth in the new era. This is hardly a general awakening, but rather an awakening to the light of consciousness that remains in a pattern as creative energy ripples through time. The power of prayer functions through these periods, yet nothing was more improbable for any student of the great schools than the use of the extraordinary power that we know governs the universe. We know that the universe is governed by law, and the same cause under the same conditions will always produce the same result. If prayer has ever been answered, this must be true. The answer to prayer is as precise and scientific as the laws governing the universe. This law is the foundation of Christianity, placed on the firm rock of understanding. It makes no exceptions and does not act on whims, nor is it moved by sympathy or requests. By universal principle, we may seem favored because of the power of thought, Every thinking person must admit the existence of an omnipresent and omnipotent intelligence that governs all things. Up until now, we have personalized this intelligence, associating it with human understanding. But the idea of personality must be abandoned. The omnipresent mind is energy, the source of all wisdom, and the value of prayer lies in its connection to the universal creative principle of the universe. Prayer is omnipotent spiritual activity reacting to existence. When I stop thinking, I cease to exist. The spirit is creative. Thought is the most significant part of our mental processes. Creative work takes place automatically, yet it is not less real. We know that all the great things we experience are more than visible. They are spiritual, more than material. Thought is a creative process, and destructive thoughts lead to death. If we focus on lack, on disharmony, we attract those energies. But if we focus on abundance and harmony, our loved ones will reflect that too. It is known that we can pray for those we care about, and by avoiding destructive thoughts, we can freely choose what we think. But this occurs according to an immutable law. Do not be deceived, for God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that will he also reap. Thought, in the form of petition, becomes prayer, and when reinforced with faith, it becomes a powerful force. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the spiritual substance that contains within it what enters, exits, and becomes one with its object. These are the only forms of creative thought, and in building something wonderful, seek tranquility and find new elements that rarely disappoint. The financier visualizes the structure before creating it. Visualization is the mental image that precedes physical form in the objective world. Then, it becomes receptive to new ideas, leading to comfort or luxury. Whether in organizational or financial matters, the concentration of spiritual faculties in the creative principle reveals that those who have mastered thought have unlocked the secret of creation. Thought correlates with object, allowing ideas to materialize in the world. Finally, love is a force that is not material, yet no one can deny that it is the most potent force in the universe. St. Paul tells us we are all children of God, the children of the universe, and through love we learn to live in harmony with all beings. Emotions are governed by subconscious activity, and thus are involuntary. This is why political demagogues appeal to passions, while revivalists appeal to emotions. Both know that when emotions are awakened, they can change the course of action. Thus, we see the same results through vengeance, class prejudice, jealousy, and joy. But the principle is the same. One is destructive, one is positive, and the other negative. They operate in the same way but with different purposes, opposites of the same force, just like the electricity that can be used for destructive purposes with the same intensity. They will say that if God is spirit and omnipotent, he cannot be subject to destructive conditions, nor to death, certainly not. But we can. A violation of spiritual laws can allow us to harbor thoughts of disharmony and perform actions that reflect these thoughts. If we only have thoughts of destruction, we harm ourselves and others. This lack of harmony is what we call evil, but it is the source of power and we can utilize it, just as we can use electricity for various purposes. But if we misunderstand electricity, the result can be disastrous. Good or bad depends on our understanding. In connection with scriptures, many are sold on chemistry, science, or philosophy, but they must also be seen from a religious perspective. What did the teachers say about this? A lawyer, a master, once posed the question, "What should I do?" and cited an old authority. He recommended we should love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. Jesus refers to God as the Father, saying, "Whoever has seen me has seen the Father." Again, it is not I who do the work, but the Father who dwells in me does the work. Our Father who art in heaven. And when he speaks to men, he says, "They will not say, 'Here it is,' or 'There it is,' for the kingdom of God is within you." Thus we find that science, outside the church, has set aside many of the teachings of the great teacher. There are things to say about the God of Jacob and Moses, but it's particularly interesting because it reflects the belief that the earth was flat and the sun moved, which was part of the science of the scholastics. This view was the result of certain assertions that were thought to be unchangeable facts that could be verified. All other facts had to be seen from these original axioms, and if those facts were observed, They would form the basis for all future conclusions. The facts were nothing compared to the conclusions of the scholastics, although there were those who still persisted with their beliefs. In the New Testament, however, the doctrine of the immanence of God becomes clear. It says, "In him we live and move and have our being. The kingdom of heaven is within you." It's interesting to note that the collection known as the Bible was written by many authors at different times. Initially, these writings were gathered into a single volume, and during much of the history, the Jewish and early ecclesiastical leaders of the church regarded it as the sacred book. In fact, until recently, there were still debates about what constituted the Bible. The Old Testament was written in Greek, and today, no manuscript of the New Testament exists in its original form. Copies of these manuscripts have often deviated from the original, and when these were translated into English, they met with violent opposition, reflecting the fact that there was little uniformity in the various translations. The version of the Bible that the people accepted was the work of 54 ecclesiastics who determined the final edition. They decided that certain issues should be settled in special meetings, with marginal notes relative to the Greek text. It became widely accepted, but despite this, the work was criticized for its beauty and smoothness, as they sacrificed precision for readability. As St. Paul said, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. What Paul seemed to intuit is that faith involves a deep understanding of this unseen reality. This definition of faith remains one of the clearest. Jesus the Nazarene completely reversed the method of authority used by the religious scholars of the time. Instead of the deductive method, he emphasized personal experience and the internal transformation of the self. When the idea of this immanent God took hold, it was understood as being closer than our breath, closer than our heartbeat, a profound awakening marking the birth of a new spiritual era. Rather than relying on external authority, we are called to cooperate with the purpose of achieving peace through internal harmony. We should find all schools of thought working toward the same purpose, spreading the good news of life. Life, and life in abundance, is to be obtained by looking inward, where true peace resides, rather than depending on external circumstances. The inner peace that reflects outward harmony is the true evidence of a life well lived. We should focus on acts of kindness, love, mercy, and honesty, as they represent the true value of our religion and our commitment to the well-being of others. The genius of humanity expresses noble deeds and seeks to make others happy by embracing new truths that rise beyond the storm, beyond the apparent limitations of science, where in part we know and in part we shall know.